Good evening and welcome to the Tonight programme. June the 23rd will go down in history as the date the UK voted to leave the EU after more than 40 years. It's a seismic shift which has shaken politics to the core. But how might it affect our day-to-day lives, our money, our bills, our property and our holidays? ITV's Consumer Affairs editor Chris Choi has travelled the length of the country in search of answers. In Brexit, what does it mean for you?
We are calling it for Leave to Win.
Independence Day!
I think the country requires fresh leadership.
I think an independence referendum is now highly likely.
This is an unacceptable situation.
Whether you are for getting out or staying in, there's now agreement on one thing: life has definitely changed. But despite weeks of feverish debate, people have been left with many unanswered questions. And that's where we come in.
We've all had a bellyful of hearing about how politicians and bureaucrats are impacted by all of this. It's time we got some answers about how the rest of us are likely to be affected.
First stop, a home show in London. People here already felt personally affected. I was there just hours after the referendum, and already its result was shaping important choices.
The big decisions, purchasing a house, how and where and when we holiday, those big decisions will definitely be putting on pause until we are sure.
Our house price is going to go up or our house price is going to go down. Does that mean then maybe mortgage repayment will be higher?
People will, after the initial shock of Brexit, they'll realise that actually, we still need to live, we still need to buy things.
What else about your personal life do you think this will affect?
I think it will affect the food that we import, so the food that we eat, the clothes that we wear, the cars that we drive, petrol and whatever, our pensions, our mortgages, our loans, our holidays.
And when 2,000 people were polled for this programme, 37% said they feared rising food bills. 25% were most worried about potential effects on mortgages and interest rates. Britain's best-known money expert, Martin Lewis, agreed to help us fill the information gap that has left many people so uncertain.
Woke up at about 5, like everyone did, turned the radio on to check what the latest is, and heard that it was a leave vote. And I sat in bed and thought, this is a seismic change. I had already read people telling me this is the end of the world as we know it.
Sentiment is such a powerful force when it comes to financial matters. It really can change things, can't it?
I've got people out there telling me their buyers pulled out of buying the house because of worries. Some people asking me, should I change my current account because of this? That's completely irrelevant. It's nothing to do with it. And we have to be very careful as a nation we don't have a self-fulfilling prophecy of recession, because if everybody retrenches, if everybody pulls back, then we will have a problem.
Hello, can I tell you what we're doing here?
Location, Solihull. Our mission, to get the best Brexit tips to the public. And for that, we lined up some of Britain's leading experts. Jasmine Birtles will be looking at personal finance.
How is this going to affect our pensions, ultimately?
Joel Brandon Bravo will be talking travel.
Back to the money question.
Money, it's always about the money, isn't it?
About the money question. Our exchange rate.
Kate Faulkner is our expert on prospects for property.
About 2 years, we bought a detached house. We're quite concerned about what's going to happen now in terms of the value.
But first, personal finance blogger Iona Bain faces a question about the cost of living.
We may
find ourselves having to deal with some sort of inflation, but it's the knowing of which way is it actually going to go. Are we going to have to deal with that? Is it going to get that bad?
I think it's probably safe to predict that there's going to be a rise in the cost of everyday goods. We have seen food prices fall in recent years. We may see a reversal in that now. It's the cost of imported goods. It's bound to have some effect. So what I would say is play safe, account maybe for 2 to 3% rise in the cost of goods, and see whether or not you've got enough left over at the end of the month to be able to cushion that blow.
For households across Britain, any prospect of higher food bills will be an unwelcome jolt. To find out more, I'm in Sheffield to meet mum of 3, Roanna.
Hello. Great to see you.
Come in.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go through to the kitchen, shall we?
The referendum triggered fluctuations in the value of the pound. If that persists, it brings potentially worrying implications for families like this.
How do you think it will affect these basic things for every family, like the weekly shop?
We just don't know how it's going to affect people's livelihoods, whether it's food or, petrol prices rising.
Like the rest of us, the Heller family try to keep their food costs down.
Shall I take that?
But many of the biggest issues of the referendum are exposed in our weekly shop. Everything from agricultural subsidy to international trade rules are right there in our groceries. So let's look at where their shopping comes from and where costs could be going.
So on this side, we've got UK produce. That is UK. Your side, Lucas, is very definitely imported. And if the pound goes down in value, all this lot gets more expensive. So there, we can see very visually the start of the potential problem, aren't we?
Yeah, that's half the shopping, isn't it?
It looks about half,
Yeah, and lots of the more expensive things as well.
Bread is a very interesting one, a really down-to-earth, everyday product. Of course, the farms behind these loaves could be affected because 55% of UK farm income is from those EU subsidies.
Wow, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and you kind of wonder what will happen to these farms and therefore the prices when that equation changes.
Farming on the rolling hills of Hertfordshire, Robert Law raises cereals and sheep. Here, he's braced for the biggest changes in a generation as agricultural payments from the EU disappear. But he thinks the effect on food prices will be good news for shoppers as costly EU red tape is scrapped.
Because we're out of the EU, will the hopefully the decrease in rules, regulations, will the cost of production fall? Will the prices fall? Marginally, I should think. I hope we see a marginal fall, because one thing the EU has actually left us with is a very high-cost agriculture.
He's now predicting an upturn in UK-produced food and that changes in our shopping will mean a boom in buying British.
I'm looking really positively at the future of UK farming because at the end of the day, people want to buy locally. They want to buy UK-sourced food. They want to know how it's grown. They want to know where it comes from. And they want to drive up the road and see how we're farming. They will be able to see it now because the emphasis is going to be on UK agriculture.
But there'll still be imports into Britain from overseas farms, and the price shoppers pay for them will depend on new trade deals. Up until now, the EU did the negotiating with countries all over the world. In future, the UK will go it alone.
Right, I mean, how about this lamb? It's actually from New Zealand. A lot of the meat we buy is from Britain.
That's really interesting, though, isn't it? Because people think that without that bond into Europe, there might be more of these old Commonwealth trade deals.
Well, that is quite possible.
The other problem, of course, with lamb is that about 30% of the UK lamb at the moment goes into Europe. If we don't have that same trade deal with the EU, they could face these things called tariffs, which is like an import tax. It would make the price of UK lamb so expensive in Europe, it wouldn't be so attractive.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's some very complicated international economics that you get a glimpse at just by going through a typical shop like this.
And we really don't know how it's going to pan out in the next 2 years or in the next 10 years.
Let's hope the mint sauce isn't as complicated.
There's a 25% gap between the food we need and what we produce. One fear is that any new trade deals Britain gets could be worse than existing global agreements done by the EU, but they could also be better.
It could be a good thing, of course, for local producers. If the prices for the imports go up, their services and their products become more attractive.
I mean, at the moment, obviously, there's a lot of British fruit about, but, you know, come the middle of winter, we're, you know, reliant on fruit and vegetables from sunnier climes, aren't we?
And not many bananas growing in Sheffield.
No, well, exactly.
If prices do rise, shopping around may become more vital. There's a £28 gap between the cheapest and most costly supermarket for a typical weekly shop. And it may be a good time to find locally produced food. There are more than 500 veg box schemes in the UK. One of the most memorable snapshots of the referendum result day, a graph showing the value of the pound falling off a cliff. That was only temporary, but it sent out a shockwave because it can affect our everyday spending.
Crude oil is traded in dollars, so if the pound's weak, you can imagine the impact here on the forecourt.
The AA gloomily predicted that petrol costs could spiral by 18p a litre. But in pre-Brexit Britain, little is certain.
We've seen the market change. The pound has dropped, the FTSE has dropped, some slight recoveries. That's an ongoing continuum. That will continue to move. There is no fixed rate. And, you know, everybody seems, the pound has dropped. What's going to happen over the next couple of years with the pound has dropped? Well, it's only dropped for a few days. We don't know whether it will still stay down there. It constantly moves.
Travel is another big issue for Brits contemplating Brexit. We love our holidays, and anything that gets in the way is bound to make us worry. Back on the road with our Brexit experts, people wanted answers.
Our exchange rate.
So we have seen a drop, but it's a relatively small drop because we've bounced back from that initial shock. So you will get less euros for your pound than you would have done prior to the vote, but actually the impact is still relatively small. It's larger against the dollar, so anybody who is planning to go to the USA this summer is probably going to find their pound goes less far. If the pound stays lower against the dollar in the long term, you might expect fuel prices to increase. And because a third of the costs of the flight is the fuel, that will ripple through. In the short term, this summer, shouldn't affect flight prices at all.
Next, we're in not-so-sunny Doncaster. The Roberts family are seasoned travellers who love to explore the world.
Yeah, I took the photo, and it's amazing I actually made it up. I'm not the best walker in the world. But it's easy to walk when you've got such beauty to kind of take your mind off the effort.
As a family where travel is so important, it's really part of your lifestyle, isn't it? What issues do you think are thrown up for travellers by this Brexit vote?
Just the practicalities. I mean, OK, let's assume we can get over the issues of visas and
more expensive
flights. Travel and flights. You know, when I travelled to the States for work a few years ago, it took me 4 hours to get through customs. I don't want to be taking 4 hours to get through customs just inside Europe.
It's in holiday healthcare that the EU has come good for travellers. The European Health Insurance Card, nicknamed EHIC, provides a valuable safety net.
For this family, the European health scheme has been really important, that travellers can get access to free care when they're on European trips.
Our daughters have had serious heart conditions, and they've been essential to us in the past, making sure that we can travel with a sense of security. In terms of if something does go wrong, we can get access to medical care quickly and for free. Because it's essentially extending the NHS into Europe.
Because we have this system of the EHIC cards, travelling within Europe is still manageable for us from a travel insurance point of view. Now, I'm going to the States in a couple of weeks, and for 6 days in America, it's costing me over £100 to cover travel insurance. So if you think that our travel insurance costs could effectively be the same for Europe as a family of four, and if we're going for 2 weeks, you know, that's adding a substantial cost to our holidays.
Lots of people have asked me about their European health insurance card. It's still valid. I would point out while we're doing this that there are about 3.5 to 4 million of them that are out of date. So go check the date on yours if you're planning to use it this summer. If not, you can renew it, and you should never pay for it. It's always free.
So here's a Brexit travel tip. Put your money onto a prepaid travel card. It protects your cash from possible falls in the pound. But remember, if sterling goes up, you could lose out. And remember, there are no changes yet to duty-free. You can still bring home unlimited alcohol and tobacco from the EU for personal use. One of the most significant potential effects of the Brexit vote isn't just close to home, it is your home. And for visitors to our information roadshow, the impact of Brexit on bricks and mortar was a major issue.
A friend of mine and myself looking at mortgages.
Well, so you're wondering what's going to happen to mortgage interest rate? Very good question, because the idea generally is that if prices go up, the Bank of England puts up interest rates to stop inflation so much. However, because the economy is looking very uncertain at the moment, I mean, frankly, everything's uncertain, it's more likely that the Bank of England will possibly even bring down rates.
So tell me a little bit, you've got a mortgage at the moment? Yeah. And is it on a fixed rate or, do you know, so it's on a variable rate at the moment. So one of the things you can do is actually go to have a chat to a mortgage broker and go and talk to them, explain that you're a little bit worried at this moment in time, because actually there are some fixed rates around at the moment that are the lowest that they've ever been. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Vicky and Andrew Marshall have already found their new family home, one with a garden and extra space for their 7-month-old daughter Harriet. They have a buyer in place for their 2-bedroom terrace property in Oldham, and their offer on a 3-bed was accepted. But that was before the referendum result. Now the biggest financial transaction of their lives has been overshadowed by new risks.
Well, because we are in a chain, you know, there's quite a few transactions above us as well. We're always cautious that somebody further up that's out of our control could either pause to hang on to see what may happen or decide to stay where they are and break the chain, so to speak, and it collapses around us.
How concerned are you by the potential for interest rates to rise?
We need to move. It's, you know, we can't avoid that. We're in the highest we're in is too small at this stage. We don't want to find ourselves in 2 years down the line and they've increased even further, and it's just a risk that we have to take. Fortunately, we're from an era of we've never known 13% mortgages, and you know, you speak to family members who faced them increases in the 1990s. They survived. We're going to have to just buckle down and crack on.
It's worth understanding, of course, falling house prices is a bad thing for some and a good thing for others. Those first-timers who can't get on the market want to see prices fall down. Those people who are trying to move to a bigger house, if your price drops, so will the one you're moving to, and the differential will be brought down. So there's no goods or bad here. Now, lots of people have asked me the very practical question, I'm about to complete on a house. Should I do it? Well, my answer is this. If the house is the right one for you, you've checked that it's affordable, you've got the cheapest possible mortgage, and it's the right decision, then the correct human decision, even if it doesn't turn out to be the correct financial one in the long run, is get on with it, get on with your life.
If you're uneasy about whether interest rates will rise or fall, you could consider fixing your mortgage rate. Record lows of 0.99% for 2 years are still available. And this autumn, home price surveys from ONS, Nationwide and Halifax will give the first hard evidence of any change in property prices. Leaving the EU has potential effects on incomes as well as outgoings. In our workplaces, uncertainty can also lead to feelings of insecurity about jobs. Business owner Julie Gash knows that across Britain, many employees are anxious about the Brexit vote.
The immediate thoughts of my own business was, when I heard the news, was, oh my God, this is going to be now so tough. There's a lot of jobs at stake.
At her South Yorkshire bag-making factory, she's called a staff meeting.
We're going to have to just see how this all unfolds. I think it's going to be tough in the short term, I'll be honest with you.
In this area, an unemployment rate over 7% means every job counts. There were over 300 applicants for the last vacancy here, but nearly half of this firm's exports go to Europe.
I'm not going to say everything's going to be hunky-dory, because quite simply it's not. We can see that already. So I think we have to be realistic, but also I'm an entrepreneur who's used to going through hard times. I started Bidby in 2008, just before the recession, and I've run it through tumbleweed times.
I think everyone's just a bit scared, you know what I mean, with the outcome of the referendum and that, but I truly think we've got to be optimistic.
We've had supply routes and connections with Europe for years, so I can't see Europe turning around and saying, oh, just because you're not in Europe now, we don't want to do any business with you. Because obviously they know that, you know, England does make quality products and things like that, so I think they're still do business with, personally.
They'd faced a barrage of questions about how Brexit could affect you. Now, our experts had a clear view of which consumer issues are worrying people most.
In what you've found today, do you think some of the fears have been ill-founded, exaggerated? Because there's been a lot of stuff in the papers, hasn't there?
Well, yes, a lot of people feel that their mortgages are going to go up. People think that's the way, but actually it's more likely that they will come down, which is great for borrowers. Bad for savers, but, you know, they're used to that, frankly.
The biggest concern in travel short-term was for people going away this summer holiday, that a big fall against the euro, predictions of 12, 15, 20%. Actually, that's not happened. It's only fallen by a few euro cents. So I think some of the worries about how much more expensive holidays were going to be have proved unfounded.
A lot of the time with markets, it's about sentiment. And if we don't play our part in trying to provide balanced, responsible information, then we can unnecessarily stoke up a lot of fears about what might happen, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Obviously, in housing, sentiment is always important. What did you get in terms of a vibe from people?
Sentiment is massive. We are Olympic medalists when it comes to worrying about housing markets, so we can literally turn the tap off of demand. However, I do think people are starting to better understand that these market movements happen, and as a result of that, they just want to understand more, what do I do about it to protect myself?
None of us know. We can make guesses, we can make assumptions, we can try and be educated, but none of us know, because the future isn't certain. And when you're dealing with things where prices move regularly, houses, the pound, the stock market, interest rates, we don't know. So it is about doing a risk assessment, planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
If you'd like more information about what Brexit might mean for you, just head to the ITV News Facebook page, where some of our experts will be answering your questions. Or you can visit our website at itv.com/tonight. Until next time, though, good evening and thanks for watching.